Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my annual presentation on what is happening in the world of SAP, specifically in the field of the mid-market portfolio. My name is Reinhard Zeno, and exactly a year ago I joined SAP's early retirement program. By now, I think I found a pretty good balance between picking up my granddaughter from kindergarten, doing some more sports, but also staying connected with you, my dear partners and customers. So, as always, for the next 30 years, I've collected those slides which I believe are very important for all of us to understand where SAP is going in the next couple of years. Therefore, a quick look at the disclaimer chart. This industry is changing fast. So whenever you take a decision, please always look at the latest roadmap information, which you find on sap.com. I'm deviating this year a little bit from the way how I presented in the last couple of years, and I put a strategy section at the beginning of this presentation because I believe it is very important where SAP is going, and you should understand the different aspects, specifically when it comes to artificial intelligence. And then obviously we dive into the product portfolio, be it S/4HANA Public Cloud, be it SAP Business One, and last but not least, SAP Business ByDesign. That's it. Here is the key visual for me of the year 2025, because it visualizes that the three aspects, the application layer, the data layer, and the AI layer, are building up the bigger picture of the architecture. The application layer feeds data into the data layer, where we are working with a harmonized data model. Because artificial intelligence can only work if the data is correct and the semantics of the data are well understood. Therefore, these three elements are mission critical. There is no such thing like a standalone AI. AI only works in the context of the data layer. Also, when it comes to the data layer, you need to understand the entire semantics, and this is where SAP sets itself apart from many others in the industry. I was asked by one of my partners to talk to a customer who was not exactly happy with SAP, and I said, why is this the case? And this customer told me, look, everybody is talking so much about artificial intelligence, and I hear close to nothing from SAP. And I said, from my perspective, this is not the situation, and therefore let me put a focus on artificial intelligence. Here you see a picture from last year's calendar with quotes of SAP executives. And here is one from 1987. Actually, one of the reasons why I joined SAP in 1991. Previously, I had written my master thesis about, you could call it first or second generation artificial intelligence topic. Back then, we talked about expert systems. And you see here a famous quote from Hasso Plattner, who says that Axel Kurka will run a new department to really be on top of all of that development. And SAP has always been working in this area of expert systems, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We kept our close relationship with the leading universities in that area. So everything that you see from SAP when it comes to artificial intelligence these days didn't fall from the sky. It's the result of really hard work. And this is one of the really busy slides, but it's important to talk about it for a minute or two. Here you see these three layers again, but broken down to a greater level of detail. And you see at the bottom, the application layer, where you have the financial management, the supply chain application, human resources, and so on and so on. This explicitly includes partner applications or applications that the customer has built on their own, because also that information is relevant for decision making, and you want to propagate it up to the data layer into the SAP Business Data Cloud, the key announcement of the year 2025, and then you can run the entire AI stack that I will talk about in a minute on top of the whole thing. One of the questions that I discussed with this customer was, well, where is the value add of artificial intelligence scenario? And to me, one of the aspects here is that artificial intelligence, and SAP coined the term Joule for this entire category of technologies, agents, services, that these capabilities help us to address real-world shortages. And the key shortage in my industry is time. It is time of the end user to get things done. It is time of the consultants to finish an implementation as fast as possible and help the next customer. And last but not least, it is time of the developers to really not waste time with trying to understand how does this code work, how would it be formulated in a better way. So what SAP does is SAP focuses on these three areas and applies artificial intelligence techniques into the user interface of its applications. And again, it is also the partners like MyWave who integrate their artificial intelligence capabilities into the user interface of SAP applications. What does this mean? The very old colleagues who are listening to this presentation may remember the R2 cards. These were long cue cards with lots of transaction codes on it. And the really experienced colleagues knew a lot of transaction codes by heart and all of the match codes. Imagine a world where you simply tell your system what you want it to do on your behalf. Create the same order that you did last week for this and this customer, but change the quantity of this article to that. Instead of entering /NVAO1 and then operating the user interface. So Joule within the application makes SAP applications a lot more accessible. The second aspect is Joule for consultants. SAP consultants are a very limited resource and actually quite expensive. So what SAP does is it trains existing large language models with content that is relevant for SAP consultants. And you can see that SAP used a lot of documents which are typically handled by our support organization and fed them into these models. Therefore, Joule for consultants becomes the most universal toolbox that an SAP consultant can use. And I can only ask all of the partners to really look into these capabilities. Especially for Business One and ByDesign partners, the good news is 90+% of all relevant information always was before in front of the firewall, which means when you ask, for example, ChatGPT or Gemini for a Business One related question, you will get quite precise answers. And last but not least, the time of developers is very short, especially if you're working in an environment where there is already a lot of code and you want to add something to it. Then to take Joule for developers, give it a block of, let's say, hundreds of lines of ABAP coding and ask Joule, explain to me what this business capability does. And you will be amazed what Joule can do for you. So Joule for developers or Gemini or all of the other environments are not only to produce new code, but also to refactor existing code and move that into the future. So these are the three real benefits that artificial intelligence drives in our industry. The customer asked me, well, why does it take SAP so long? In his perception, others were much faster. And one of my points was, if you look at this picture here, you have at the bottom all of the partnerships that SAP has with the AI ecosystem. And trust me, there's a lot of movement in this layer below. New players are coming in, others are leaving. Yesterday, a lot of people were laughing about Gemini. Today, a lot of the analysts say Gemini is the leading platform. And what is even more important is the pricing of these models changes nearly on a daily basis. So the difficult thing is, if you build an application and you include prompts, and you test the prompts against a specific large language model, and you get it to work, that's great. But what do you do if suddenly a different model is significantly cheaper and may give you a better result? So what SAP has done is something truly amazing. It is an abstraction layer between the world of the applications and the world of the large language models, so that you can basically leave it up to that layer to say, pick the most appropriate model from a commercial standpoint, from an accuracy standpoint for me. And that is something which nobody else does. The next aspect is that, especially, and in the US we already had that for quite a number of years, that we had the dedicated topic of sovereign cloud. Therefore, SAP has an own entity in the US called NS2, and SAP is now implementing similar sovereign cloud capabilities in Europe and in Asia. This is very important, or this was very important for many of our customers in the public sector, but also large customers from other industries these days prefer to have a setup in a sovereign cloud environment in their region of the world. But that must include the AI capabilities. Therefore, all of the announcements that you've seen this year of SAP with Deutsche Telekom, with SAP and NVIDIA, with SAP and Google are mission critical, that SAP can provide those customers who want a sovereign cloud, but with state-of-the-art AI technology. And this is why it sometimes seemed to take a bit longer for SAP to get these things done, but SAP does it in a really good and reliable way for you. So that said, today we have three categories of models. We have the large language models, which predict the next token, which may be a word or a sentence. You have the image models, which do an amazing job to predict the next pixel. And you have more and more of the video models, and this is not an AI-generated video. You have the video models which predict the next frame. But you can use these models now and try to apply them to real-world business cases. And then you will always find these predictive use cases, like delivery delay prediction, tax code prediction, sales order completion, or check if the VAT number for this and this customer is correct. And if you address these topics to the existing models, you will not be very successful. The results will not be good enough to use it in a business environment. Therefore, again, SAP spent a lot of time around the world with our own research organization, with leading research institutes like the one in Kaiserslautern or Stanford University or MIT, just to name a few, or the leading institutes in France. And we are doing published research work. And the key topic here for SAP was, how do we work in a world where we have a lot of structured relational data? So this development work led us to one of the key announcements for me this year, the availability of SAP Rapid One. Rapid One is a pre-trained SAP model specifically for the use cases which you saw on the previous slide, where SAP has access to a vast amount of anonymized customer data. Customers provided SAP with a consent to anonymize the data and then to train the model. So SAP ships a pre-trained model, SAP Rapid One, and this model helps you to predict your business future for the scenarios that are used. And how do you use it? And I can only recommend to all of you, please take the time and look at the recording of the TechEd presentation keynote by Mohammed Alam and Philipp Herzig and Michael Ammeling. And look at the demos, because in these demos you can really see how the nice theory of artificial intelligence now really generates value. And how do you use such a pre-trained model like RPT-1? And I took a screenshot here of the demo where the colleague explains, well, you simply have here in the middle call foundation model predict. That is where you invoke the model. And you just say, take that model, here is the input data, because it is pre-trained. You don't need to worry about all of the steps which in a machine learning world you had to do before. And then you can say, give me the prediction of the likelihood of this sales order, which sales order will close in Q4 as a number, and give that back to me in that table. And this is, for me, one of the key areas where I recommend to all of my partners, get your hands around RPT-1. There's even an SAP playground which SAP established so that you can try it out. The second major announcement this year was that SAP comes back to the term Business Suite. For the old persons like myself, this is not a big surprise. SAP always has been about end-to-end business processes and making sure that the different applications work together. But we also had a time where we had more a kind of line of business connotation. And integration, yes, was important, but was not at the center of the strategy. This has changed with this slide here. And I'm super happy that SAP basically is back to what most of the customers really want from SAP, and these are end-to-end business processes. Therefore, SAP delivers unparalleled applications, and also part of that discussion with this customer was when they said, well, how do you compare, for example, SAP and Microsoft? And my point was, all of the large players in the industry have really good solutions. But where SAP goes the extra mile are these end-to-end processes. Therefore, whenever somebody considers using an SAP solution, I always say, first look at the end-to-end processes. If you're using ByDesign, use the Scenario Explorer. If you're using Business One, you find a lot of documentation about the processes. And if you're using S4, please familiarize yourself with Signavio and the end-to-end processes there, because that is what generates the real long-term value. And at the center of all of this, and I've said it in the previous years too, is S4HANA Public Cloud. Unfortunately, I don't have any time in this more mid-market focused presentation to talk about S4HANA Private and how we transition ECC customers over into the new world of S4. And S4 in itself would be a 3 hours long presentation. Therefore, I only took one slide, and a big thank you to Bert Schulze and his team for this amazing product expert training, which finally this year I had the time to really attend it. And I just took this slide here to show you the progression of S/4HANA Public Cloud when it comes to the different categories, like how many languages are supported, how many countries are supported out of the box, the API layer, which is growing by the day. Even more important, the announcements of SAP to adhere to the A2A protocol and the model context protocol for the AI use cases and the newly shipped AI features. So S/4HANA Public Cloud is growing fast, and I'm really happy also to see how many of my ByDesign partners have their own S/4HANA Public Cloud practices up and running these days. And as you can see from these numbers, it's a really good business. That said, let's go to the other side of the SME portfolio, SAP Business One. And that is, as always, amazing. Big thank you here to Darius and his team to publish a blog post, I think about a month ago, saying, hey, B1 wins 10 new customers every day. And that makes SAP Business One SAP's best-selling ERP solution by number of customers. 83,000 customers by now. You can read at all of the numbers. Also take a look at the SAP News article where you can find the link here at the bottom. B1 is really growing fast. And the key reason why B1 is growing so fast is the web client. We are coming to the end of the transition from the traditional Business One desktop client to the B1 web client, which you operate in a browser, which follows the Fiori style paradigm, which uses the underlying SAP technology when it comes to user interface building, which we are also using for S4 or for ByDesign. And the good news is we are now having, I would say, about 80% coverage of all of the business capabilities you can reach with a web client. So yes, there is the final stretch needs to be done, and SAP is on its way. And I had the opportunity to meet Swiss partners a month ago in Zurich. And what I really liked was that the partners now take their own extensions, like Core System with their country packages, like Phoenix Business Consulting with the applications that they are building. And they are building them on the same web client stack that SAP is using. So the secret sauce of Business One are all of the partner extensions, be it the one from Versino, be it the ones from Boyum, and all of the others. And it is super important for me to see that these partners are now picking up the web client and specifically the web client extensibility to get their extensions ready, because B1 can only be as powerful as we all want to have it if we have both the SAP B1 solution fully available on the web client, plus all of the relevant partner extensions also available on the web client. And here we are on a good way, and the UI API framework, and here a big thank you to all of my friends in Israel for the work that they are doing. Please use these capabilities to make your extensions available. And then we finished the planning phase for SAP Business One 11, which will be the successor of B1 version 10, which we now have in the market since quite a number of years. The good news is we are done with the UI. We are done with the business capabilities. The focus of B1 11 will be more on lifecycle management. And here you can see some of the topics that Peter Dominic and his team are calling out for B1 11, which you will then see probably in the time frame 2027-2028. So with that, my famous quote, be one forever, here's the substance, and I'm super excited, and a big thank you to all of the partners, all of the alliances like the Linked World Alliance, to really make this product what it is today. Last but not least, Business ByDesign. Many of you know that I joined that product organization in 2003. You see the growth numbers here. They are not as fast growing as S/4HANA Public Cloud, simply because S/4HANA Public Cloud is the strategic solution of SAP. But as you can see here, the ByDesign installed base is growing fast. Some customers now have reached really the limits of ByDesign. They were relatively smaller, mid-sized companies when they joined the journey on ByDesign. They have simply grown so fast that they transition now to S4. So there are a lot of tools and packages available from SAP. Please reach out to Markus Uhlich and his team for additional information. All of my leading partners like the All for One group, All for Cloud, Agilita, many of the others have their transformation packages, how you get from ByDesign to S/4HANA Public if you really reach the limits of ByDesign. As always, SAP published just recently, Christoph Schneider, the latest version of the roadmap, and therefore I want to take the time to say a big thank you to especially Krishna Anapati and all of the colleagues working on ByDesign. Krishna also has responsibility for B1 development, so even more thanks for that bigger picture, but also to the colleagues of HCL. A lot of people said when SAP brought in external development resources from HCL that this will never work, this will be a catastrophe whatsoever. Not at all. Every single update was shipped flawlessly. And if you look at all of the details that have been built last year into ByDesign, this is just amazing. I'm so super proud of that team. And this explains why ByDesign is growing. That said, on the ByDesign side, many of you may have seen the article of Handelsblatt that SAP plans to take ByDesign off the price list for net new customers. It is super important to understand that this decision has nothing to do or has no impact for installed base customers. Installed base customer can continue to buy more ByDesign tenants, more ByDesign users, this and this. SAP did not announce any end to the life of ByDesign. But for net new customers, it is just more advisable if you start the journey today, start it on S4, because that is the strategic bet of SAP. I'm sure that we will also have ByDesign customers in 2030, those ones growing and who want to have a transition path to S4. As mentioned before, there are a lot of partners available, and you will hear more next year about this topic. But that said, SAP has a comprehensive mid-market portfolio comprising of Business One, Business ByDesign, and obviously the big strategic workhorse of SAP, S/4HANA Public Cloud. SAP has a comprehensive data strategy and AI strategy, and I hope that you agree that this really is a great platform for the years to come. That said, thanks a lot. I wish you a fantastic 2026 and see you next year.